Dancing, singing, laughing, earth in my hands. My sun-drenched skin puts me into a trance. There's no other place I'd rather be. Marching with my witches, blessed be. Spinning in a circle, wind in my hair. Playing with my shadow, I don't care. There's no other place I'd rather be. Marching with my witches, blessed be. Marching with my witches, blessed be. Blessed be. Blessed be. Then there's a whoosh, the curtain rises. Then there's a crack, the lightning strikes. Then there's a boom, the thunder roars. I am who I am, blessed be. I am who I am, blessed be. I am free. Boom of the ocean, carry my soul. Speak to my heart, let love unfold. There's no other place I'd rather be. Marching with my witches, blessed be. Marching with my witches, blessed be. Blessed be. Blessed be. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
And there we are.
Wow! What an intro! Wow! I love that. That's amazing. Blessed be. You realize this is now going to be stuck in my head, but that's okay. Anyway, I just want to say welcome to everybody who's tuning in to episode 26 of Ancestral Eyes. We have a very special guest on tonight. Reverend Alexander Cabot, the high priest of the Cabot lineage. And I want to say welcome, Alexander, to Ancestral Eyes, and welcome to all our guests who are tuning in tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and blessings out there. It's wonderful to be here with both of you and everyone else out there in cyber world.
Thank you. And Jean-Jerome, welcome to my co-host.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
thank you, Teresa, and a warm welcome to Reverend Alexander Cabot, a third-degree high priest of the Cabot line, and Encuano, nacido en Cuba. So this is going to be a Spanglish edition of Ancestral Eyes, episode 26. So welcome.
Thank you very well, and gracias, bienvenido a todos. A little bit of Spanish for those who speak Spanish out there as well.
Ashe, ashe.
Thank you. So, Jean-Jerome, would you like to do an intro, read the bio for Alexander?
It would be my privilege. So, our good friend, Reverend Alexander Cabot, was born in Havana, Cuba. And on an old moon in September, autumnal equinox, he was the first child born to his mother. She had a miscarriage of her first pregnancy arising from a hex put on her, one filled with envy and deceit. Alexander grew up knowing that he was born to counteract that spell and save his mother's happiness in life. Living in New York at a very tender age, he was taught the magical traditions of a line of men in his family. Within that lineage, his great-grandfather, grandfather, and father, possessing initiated Masonic and the occult sciences, presented a good influence for him to model himself to. Being not of English descent, he was genuinely curious and heartfully drawn to British traditional witchcraft at an early age of 11, through the writings of Gardner, Sybil Leek, and Doreen Valiente. When Alexander became 13 years of age, he was initiated into Palo Mayombe of the Congo, Afro-Cuban Congo, and what called tradition Inkisi. He then began his spiritual studies of El Evangelio de Allan Kardec, Espiritismo Kardeciano, at El Templo, La Luz Cristóbal de Jesús, and he was crowned on his 19th birthday. African spirit guides carried him to be initiated into the African diaspora religion of Regla de Ocho Santeria Lukumi tradition. He was the right-hand man of Honoriate Chief High Priest Alexander, was initiated and taught Welsh and Gardnerian New York Wicca by Lady Rhea, which was our former guest, and part of the Ancestral Eyes family now, throughout the 90s, but for several years after, he devoted all his time to his profession in surgery. It's very important to note that Reverend Alexander Cabot is in the medical field. Having mastered that purpose for the all, he has personally decided to return to the craft and re-energize his spiritual journey again, starting on the great Sabbath, Samhain, 2009, being mentored, initiated, and ordained by the official witch of Salem, Reverend Laurie Cabot, High Priestess. His communal energies are now in Salem, Massachusetts, as well as in New York City, where he resides, being a third-degree high priest of the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple and an elder in his community. Welcome, bienvenido de nuevo, hermano Alejandro Cabot.
Alejandro, that's
Welcome.
right.
I love
that.
this.
Unfortunately, I didn't have Lady Gaga back then, so they had to change my name from Alejandro to Alexander when I was in school. So, but now, obviously, Gaga made it really popular.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. So before we start our questions, I wanted to, first of all, commend you on that amazing video, promotional video. That is awesome. I love that.
Thank you. That video is done by Ashley Cruz. And she is a songstress, and she has her own band called the Cruise Machine, and she's playing at the Pocono Witch Festival, which is online. Eddie Massey, who's my host for This Old Witch, a podcast that I'm his co-host for, he's going to be having various presenters, and obviously Ashley Cruz is going to be one of the singer and songstresses that will be playing there tonight.
Nice.
Oh, Lee! Hello, my brother from Massachusetts. Oh my God, there's so many people. I have to give
Ashley Cruz.
Ashley Cruz is in
Hello,
the house.
Ashley. Very good song. We take off our hat.
That was the day
I love that
the
song,
eve
Ashley.
of my birthday, and she invited me out to her house in Connecticut, where she was doing the final filming with her videographer for her music video that you just saw. So it was a great honor to be featured in my first music video with her. So it was wonderful.
Love it.
Wonderful.
To portray the magic, the love, the priesthood, the priestess.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to have that all culminated in a beautiful video like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you. Oh my God. Really, I'm very impressed. And thank you, Ashley. Ashley, you looked amazing, just amazing in that video, I have to say. Okay, so everybody, we're going to have a really good show tonight. I can feel it. I feel it in my bones. So everyone who's tuning in, we're just about to start our questions. And of course, in our usual style, we always start with the first question, which is, how did you first know and what brought you on your spiritual path? What was it that sort of pushed you forward?
It was spirit. Always has. It's been spirit. That is something that it's been part of my fiber within this plane of, of existence. This is something that I knew since I was a child. Like when you spoke about the crone earlier on, in our beginning, I knew about the crone. I saw the crone. I felt her. She was always motherly. She was always present. Her energy was so inviting. So spirit was with me always, and that's something that I knew that I had a calling. And obviously, growing up within a magical family like my parents, they were not of the African diaspora, but they were more of the European, the Alanka, what we call in my culture, Mesa Blanca, Allan Kardec, or the Freemasons. My mother was the daughter of the Eastern Star. We used to, as a little boy, I remember they would take me to the lodge. They had a room designated for children. There was a teacher or supervisor. We would play in the room while the adults will go into the great hall, and the doors will close. But I felt the energy. I felt that great mystery going on within those walls of that lodge that they belonged to. They were free thinkers. Obviously, I was brought up Roman Catholic on the outside as a social facade, but within home we were free thinkers. So the ideology of female divinity and male divinity, making the balance of what is our existence on this plane, what resonated with me even at a very tender age. So I knew that spirit was the primordial force of it all. So this is something that is part of my own incarnate spirit. And I knew that I had this calling that I needed to evolve, and which I did. I kind of mastered into various traditions and kept going where I am today as a middle-aged man. So
Well, it's been a very interesting life journey spiritually as well, starting off, as you said, with your parents. Would you say that was more the Espiritisto movement with your parents?
El espiritismo espiritismo is the umbrella term, but the branch of Allan Kardec is spiritist. That was primarily the branch that he started, that movement. Of course, the movement of Espiritismo of the Victorian era, started way back when by the sisters and Arthur Conan Doyle, and commercialized. And of course, there were controversies with Houdini and trying to he was trying to find himself, but also he was bitter, and he tried to outcast and like Beledinsky and Madame Beledinsky and so many personalities throughout history that came with that movement. And I believe that there are the pros and cons in life. But you need to believe in your inner core, in your inner individual, and that's what's important. In order for you to, keep going, I think that everyone has their mission, everyone has their purpose, and that's the honest truth. And I had my own, and I had to find it. I had to you see, one of the teachings that I always got is that family cannot help you on your spiritual journey, your blood family. So especially when you have a hex, or you have your parents can't, like, I couldn't help my mother, but I stabilized my mother's hex, that I mentioned in my bio, because that was primarily, there was a reason why I came with my my grace, my
And your
ability.
eyes wide open.
Yeah, well, that and that helped to stabilize and help and keep my mother's happiness at bay. And just recently, I've been able to eradicate all those energies, all those negative forces, and it was a wonderful. It's amazing after so many years that could be done. But for the time being, I am well. I'm happy. I'm on I still on my path. I could be 92 and still learning, with a smile, and keep on learning and learning from a youngster, learning from a young person. This is a faith of humility. That's one of the things that I don't see often. I unfortunately, and I am one that I honor my elders. That's why I love Lady Rhea. I've known her for 30 years. She's one of my first high priestess in the craft, and also one of my dearest friends. And I help, and I do, and this is something that is my duty.
Yeah.
Como decimos en español, mi deber, y lo tengo que hacer. It's my duty to do.
Absolutely. So now I have to ask, how did you come to walk the path as a palero and get into Paulo?
Oh wow! So Freemasonry gave me the wisdom, let's say, and then of course the occult sciences of the lineage of men in my family, and then where they spoke about Nostradamus, and they spoke about the Kemetic laws, and the Hermetic laws, and Kemetic magic, and we spoke about so many things pertaining to mystery schools. So one of the things that then later on, when I was about 13 years of age, I had a friend in school, and he was Afro-Cuban, and we grew close, and we became very close friends, very good friends. And so he invited me over to his house, and I met his dad. And his dad worked in New York City in the Diamond District. He was a jeweler. And so I was fascinated with his being a mystic. And I didn't know what type of mystic he was, but he was able to divulge his secrets of being a palomonte, which is the umbrella term, and then you have palomayombi, which is like the first branch to reach Cuba because of the diaspora, and then you have quimbisa, and you have some other, I forget the branches of or the lineages of. There's one that is, I think quimbisa is actually all three. It's the spiritismo, palo, santeria, all together. So, but the umbrella term is palomonte. So this is a shamanic necromancer. This is an old, pre-Christian, practice or praxis of Africa, of the Congo region. And so, because of the slave trade and the migration of this culture came to the New World, brought their faiths. And so he was Afro-Cuban, and he was an amazing man. He was in Cuba, he was a shoe cobbler, but at the same time, he was the mayordomo of Ernest Hemingway. He was the butler, or the right-hand man for Ernest Hemingway. And so I'm all this is going into my book. This is a wonderful tale, and how he became. He told me at a very young age his life story, and I kept it in my memory bank, and so I write it in my book. It's fascinating what he went through. And so this man who became my godfather was a very interesting individual who had such knowledge and about the tradition. And so he actually was here in the United States, in New York. He had to commit to his promise of La Prenda. He needed to. And so how he was able, I'll tell you a little story, how he was able to retrieve La Quillumba, which is a fragment of that of
lineage.
That, well, yes, it's a mystery, but he was able to he was a shoe cobbler, and he was actually hollow out his heel and then place el macuto inside, which is an amulet, and he was able to put it inside his heel, and then leave the country because they were very they were in Cuba when the Exodus, they were very strict on what you were leaving with. So he was able to hide this religious item in his heel that he hollowed out and leave to Spain. He left to Spain in Madrid. He lived in Madrid for 4 years until he was able to come to the States. When he came to New York City, that's when I met his youngest boy, and we became friends. And Cuban, but Afro-Cuban. And it was fascinating. I was able to learn about the mysteries and the religion itself, and he was able to welcome me in with whole heart, and learn about the spirit itself. He was a true shamanic necromancer. And this is how I started my journey through Palo Mayombe, and later on, at the age of 15, I went into my first spiritual temple, which was La Luz, Cristo de Jesús, which El Evangelio de Allan Kardec, which this is something that they made us all study each and every book, but it was Creole. It was typical Cuban spiritismo. So it was Allan Kardec, but more the Creole, which when we say Creole, is more the fusion of the culture itself, of the Cuban culture. So you have the European and then the African together. So that was an amazing experience where I was able to what we call desarrollar mediunímicamente. I was able to develop my mediumnic abilities, tap into them, have remote viewing, third eye, what we call alpha, but more than that, like one of the most ancient mystery schools that we have today, which is Rosicrucians. They use a lot of the first principle of Hermeticism, which is mentalism.
Right.
So that was one of my training from the age of 15 all the way till 19, where I was crowned. And it was wonderful to be part of that temple, because the family energy, the humility, the loving, the support. I was the youngest medium of them all. I was 15 years of age among a group of 50 mediums. So in a circle. And we have different techniques within the culture, Cuban culture, which is el cordón, medionímico, and then you have also the where they sit in a circle, and then the doorway is tied off with a flag or a pañuelo, what we call a scarf. And that's typical. That's more city. That's more city, and then you have the more country version, which is more cordón, and then the vibration where they go singing around in a circle, in clockwise, and that is beautiful too. I've experienced that in Miami, but what I grew up with was more the city technique of el cordón, that we would sit down and you would, each and every medium had its time to speak, and they had a pad and a pencil, and you would then go into trance and then start writing, and then you go back into trance and then write some more. And then when it was your turn, that you would speak what you have received. So that's the training that I got at my younger years.
Wow! And what a platform! What a foundation for your future coming into witchcraft, for sure. And now, how did that transpire? Oh my God, Alex! It's amazing.
Wait
before that,
because he went into regla de ocho first. Oreja no pasa cabeza. He was in regla de ocho first.
He was crowned.
So,
but I'm going to say, I'll go back the tender years of my life. At the age of 11, I was fully drawn into witchcraft, British traditional, because the crone, like I said, the crone always spoke to me. She revealed herself. She was always motherly. She always was there for me. So at the age of 11, I remember that I was deep into Gardner. Symbolique was my favorite. I love Symbolique. I was like in total awe of Symbolique at that age.
She was my introduction too.
Yes, Diary of a Witch.
Yeah,
for a young lad, I was like, wow, this is great. So she was an amazing practitioner, author, teacher, everything.
Yeah.
I just was very inspirational. So Symbolique, then you had Gardner and Doreen Valiente.
Yes.
And I'm going to mention something that a lot of people, there's always controversy, but I always respect. They were there for me in my younger years. Was Gavin and Yvonne Frost. I know a lot of people have a lot of controversy with him, with them and everything, but years have passed and everything. But they were responsible for making Wicca a religion, to be federally recognized as a religion.
They really did.
They did.
So,
and they were the first ones to have, and I remember in 1964, they were the first ones to have the Church of Wicca. Okay, when we didn't even think that Wicca would become a household word.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is something that we, we have to accept. We have to be more humble and more compassionate. This
To
fighting
our
and
elders.
feud about people and this and that. No way. We have to embrace it's about humanity and it's about our growth.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
you don't see that today. You see the
No.
entitlement, you see I do this, I do that, you're not this, you're not that. And that's not the case.
Lots of judgment. Yep.
No, you work hard for what you have.
Ashe.
Absolutely.
You
Oh,
work hard for
yeah,
I
100%.
worked hard for what I have. I
Absolutely.
in order for me to become a Cabot high priest, I ventured out to say I live in New York City. I took the bus, I took the train, I went out to Salem, to Boston, to Salem, to learn from a great elder like Laurie Cabot.
Kudos to
be
you.
mentored, to
Absolutely.
be blessed by her, to be then ordained and initiated by her. This is a great privilege.
Yes. Yes, it is. We
but it
cannot
comes
forget
with
our
hard
elders.
work. It's not from a book.
No. Because the old craft was taught by mouth.
It's still
right?
it's still certain traditions. It's all about oral traditions.
Absolutely. It's an oral tradition.
And when it came to Palo, for me, when I write in my book, it's because it's oral tradition that was passed on to me. Do I reveal mysteries? No, I don't reveal certain mysteries. I reveal the basics and the whole memoirs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. People forget this, even when I look back, lots has been said about, the Slavic, pantheon, or the Slavs don't have a religion, or it's been lost in antiquity, because it's an oral tradition and it has been passed down as such. There is no quaint little pantheon the way most other, cultures have. It's a living tradition. And that's how we had, lived and brought our traditions forward.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to be said about our elders. And kudos to you, Alexander, for saying that, because we forget about some people who, coming up through the ranks, we've had to do the things that we've had to do in order to get to where we are. And it is hard work, but we've also had people that have guided us. And, like you mentioned,
and it's sentimental, and it touches me like Lady Rhea. I adore her. She's one, Laurie Cabot. I adore her. They're one of, my elders, my teachers, my mentors. Mm-hmm. How can I not, put them on pedestals and honor them? Because once you honor your elders, you honor yourself. I always say so.
They were the ladies I looked up to. When I went to Salem and I bumped into Laurie Cabot in her store, we just kind of looked at each other, and I was kind of stunned. I went, was that really her? And she just kind of looked at me and went, whoa, and sort of walked off, right? But, I grew up wanting to know these people, and Lady Rhea, this is for me, it's a dream come true to have had her on our show. Honestly, it really was. It was such an honor and a pleasure, it really has.
I'm so happy. This is about humanity. This is about, I always say, and I'll always say to the day I die, religion is man-made. It is our mere interpretation of spirituality. And so each and every tradition, it is made by us in order to be close to divinity, to understand our existence. This is something that is important within humanity and culture. And so in each and every culture has it. And so that's the beauty of it. It has its art form. And each culture has that art form. It has that beautiful visualization or sympathetic magic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's
And
what's
pass it down.
that's the whole, encompasses everything in life. It puts a smile to my face. That's
Oh.
wonderful. But today is about
Mhm.
us getting together to share knowledge, to share wisdom
Mhm.
with those
Mhm.
brothers and sisters out there that are connecting with us. That's the true reason for
Absolutely.
this. And I'm happy for your
Absolutely.
show.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. And we're
Thank you.
we're tickled pink that we actually put this whole show together too. It came
Good.
from a dream. It really did. It was just
Okay.
something that I called up Jean-Jerome and said, "Hey, I had this really weird dream." And Jean-Jerome heard me out and he said, "Let me get back to you." And he did. And well, here we are,
Well, I have
episode
to say
26.
you have a very good friend there, and you have a good co-host, because Jean-Jerome is a unique man. He's a very
Yes.
special man. And
Yes, he is.
especially
I know he is.
and to have him in Canada. I have to say, I want to give a shout out to my Cabot brothers and sisters in Canada,
Yes.
and Massachusetts as well, but especially in Canada. There is a chapter of the Cabot Ken Hermetic Temple in Canada, in
Yes, there is.
Hamilton, Canada,
Yes.
by Reverend Leslie Armstrong and
Yes.
Reverend Jeff Sutton. They run
Yes.
a beautiful coven of the Cabot Ken Hermetic Canadian chapter. We call them the
Yes.
Canadian Cabots. So I want to give them a shout out to Leslie, to Jeff, to Kimberly, to Ashley, to everyone
Melissa.
else out there. I'm sorry if I forgot your name, but
Yeah.
I will
Melissa.
be
Melissa
speaking to them
Cabot.
soon.
Van
But
Leuven.
I wanted to give them my love, and let them know, and thank them for actually supporting your show, and being an audience for this episode.
And they're welcome. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So let's get back to now. Okay. Because Jean-Jerome is going to really bug me if I don't ask you to continue your story about your
Regla de
being
ocha.
crowned to Regla de Ocha.
Ocha,
You won't let me
ese
live this down
ocha.
if I don't ask.
Wow. Yes. From Espiritismo, I at the age of 19, when I was crowned and everything, of course, life has a tendency to shift and change, and you kind of lose track of your past and so forth. So I was introduced to an Oriate that saw a certain spark in me, a certain angel, as we say, and he knew that I was supposed to do more. And he actually took me under his wings, and I was able to go through the whole protocol of Ocha. And it was an amazing experience. And I knew that was coming because, once again, Spirit came to me. Spirit divulged its secret. It said that I would receive in Adimu. I would receive something of a blessing in Ire, and it would be soon. And it was again. It came without me even thinking about it, and it just transpired, and to the point that I was able to become one of Ocha, and receive all its blessings. It was phenomenal. It took apparently it took about 3 years, but I was able to go through, and at that time I remember going into New York and going into the Magical Child. that is something memorable for me, and kind of sentimental, because it reminds me of Herman Slater, and going into the child and seeing, actually seeing Lady Rhea. And this is right before she opened up enchantments in the East Village with Carol. So this is like tender memories. I write all this is going into a book, so I'm happy to keep this, for future legacy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so when you got crowned, was that in New York, or did you have to go back to Cuba?
No, it was in New York. I was actually, part of it was in Miami and part of it was in New York.
Ah, okay. All right.
So I was it took about 3 years, and then working with this chief high priest, which usually, like when you mention chief high priest, is within the ATRs. This is a Oriate, and the Oriate is pretty up there. But you see, in Yoruba or Santeria, you have that umbrella, and then you have Ifa, which is totally linked but separate, and it's totally it has its own division itself, but it's based on a great master of Oromila, and which you might know. So a lot of people don't, huh?
Jean-Jerome and I know, kind of.
Oromila, which I don't have my idea with me. I have two. I have one in gold, set in gold, and I was one of the first ones to have it out of the leather, because in the old days you would have ilide inside of leather, and it would be encased inside of a leather band, and that was part of the I would say the when we came here to the States. But that was the first, and then the new wave of, there's always modern versions, but the new wave back in the 90s, they started doing gold case ides and also silver. So they would place it in silver, and then they would actually have it to be fed, as we say.
Yes. As I have mine very plain. It's not encased in anything, but
we would have it encased in gold, and that was just a fancy, because Cubans love gold.
That was a Cuban bling.
Yeah, the Cuban link. There's a link
bling.
that actually is Italian, and because the Cubans bought this typical Cuban link of chain, it got colloquialized as the Cuban link. And so every jeweler that you go to, the Cuban link. Oh yeah, the Cuban link. So it became a household word. So yes,
I love that.
So the elide. Yeah. So the first time I received my my guerreros or warriors were from Babala. Babala was he was from he was Cuban, and he was the first one to actually present to me, and my first elegua de fa.
Okay, Eshu.
Eshu aye.
Oh, very good.
Eshu aye.
Eshu aye de fa.
Very good.
Aru aye mi museo.
Yeah, there we go. Very good.
So
we all have our issues.
Echuo eleguarai, Echuo eleguarai, eleguara mofori vale, eleguara go I go.
Very good. Very good.
Wow, you're good. You're good. Keep going. Keep going, Alex.
Yeah.
Let me just
So,
break out into dance right now, you know?
now I get inspired. Oh, mi tuto, ana tuto, tutu le, tutu iña, tutu aloroye.
Wow, very good.
You're
No,
good. You're good.
this is something
Okay.
that was very inspirational for me. So once I went through the whole ATRs, and remember, my parents was totally reneged on Santeria o Palo. They didn't, that was not their thing. Their thing was more of a, of the
Espiritista.
Freemasonry, Spiritista. They of a higher vibration, Rosicrucians, so forth. So I understood,
and you
but
broke away.
I have spirit guides that are African, so they drove me to be initiated. How fortunate was I to have such a friend whose father was a palero, a full-fledged palero, a taita in Ganga, that was able to teach me. And me, as a youngster at 13, be part of that prenda, fundamento.
I know.
And also, when I had my first registry, I remember that it was Mama Centella, who's Oya, and we kind of synchronize it with Hecate, and so Mama Centella Oya, Remolino Cuatro Viento, and so she was the first to claim me, but then there was Ochun, there was Mama Chola, that what they call in Congo. Mama Chola, and then there was, and then all of a sudden this total tornado, and she presented herself with a crown, and she claimed me. It was Mama Kalunga. It was Yemaya. Yemansha. Like the Portuguese or the Brazilians would say.
Mother of fishes.
Yes.
Yemoya.
Yes, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful the patakis of Yoruba is very beautiful. It's such like the Native American, beautiful stories of nature and spirit. And so,
primal
do you
forces.
have time for me to mention one of the patakis?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Oh, please go right ahead.
Absolutely.
So, in the beginning of the world, when Olodumare, which is the creator, the all, when Olodumare is going to make the world, the planet Earth itself, he actually creates the earth itself and the seas. And so when he creates Orungam, which is the center of the earth, and then he creates Olokun, it's the abyss of the sea. He creates Olokun first because she is the mysteries of the sea. And from the mystery arises Yemanja, and she gives birth to all the Orishas. And then onto the earth steps the first avatar, or the first Obatala, which is Odua. And he's the oldest and wisest and the most purest of all the Obatalas, and he steps onto the earth. And so that's one of the patakis. It's the whole compartmentalization of it. It would be Olodumare, Olofi being like the Holy Spirit per se. So Lofi, and then Obatala being the avatar itself, or Odua being that avatar stepping onto the earth. And then, of
Yes.
course,
Yeah.
Yemaya rising from Olokun and giving birth to all the other Orishas. It's a beautiful.
Awesome. It is. I love hearing anything about Yemoya. I'm a daughter of Yemoya, so for
of
me,
course, me too. I'm a son of Yemaya.
so I love my
Oh, mío,
Yemoya for
Yemaya.
sure.
Oh, mío,
Yes.
Yemaya
Yes.
Oloto.
Yeah,
Yes.
Olokun. So that is something that is dear to my heart. So the ATRs plays a very important part of my upbringing. Of course, my pilgrimage into the spiritual praxis, and so on to then New York, and you know, I was a club kid before the 90s ever developed the term club kid. Okay, so I was a club kid back in the days of Danceteria and Limelight.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
this gay on
Triple Light
19th Street,
Fantastic.
there was the only, well, American, because within our culture we had botanicas. We had botanicas everywhere. That's our witch shops. But
Yes.
this was special because this was an American occult shop located on 19th Street in Chelsea, and it was owned by Herman Slater. And so it was a stomping ground for me as a kid. So I would go before I would go to the clubs. If it was Danceteria on 22nd or 19th Street right there on 6th Avenue, would be Limelight, but that was 1983 at the time when they opened. And so I would go into Herman's store, and I was a young pup, and so I would be fascinated with the books, the occult books, and so forth. So I would go and I would read, and Herman always had a liking to me. So I would read my book, but then there was someone else that came by and copied what I was doing. So they would read books, and he would be furious. So he would say, he said, "This is not the New York City Public Library. Effing out of here." So he had a sign up in the store. It says, buy or buy. He would say buy or buy.
That's what Lady Rhea said.
Yeah, he had a sign. He would say buy or buy.
I love it.
And it was so
I love
funny.
it.
So I never forget that. I would cringe. I was like, but it was not towards me. He would always let me, check out the books because I was polite. I was very careful, and I gingerly opened up the books, and I never really manipulated them, harshly or anything like that.
Lick the pages with your finger and turn the pages.
I was very kind. Hi, Herman. How are you? So of course I was a cute little boy, so he loved that.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
So,
all right.
No, those are my fond memories. Of course, Lady Rhea, Eddie Basinski, his beautiful, bewitching green eyes, such a magical being. Those were those were like very inspirational moments of my life, growing up in New York City, and having the child, as one of my stomping grounds.
Yes, the magical child. God, I remember reading about this, here in Canada, just going, wow, now that's a place I'd really like to go, but hey, here we are.
Yeah, no, it's just a memory now, but that's going in my book as well. And more.
Perfect. So now, how did you start going into witchcraft? I know it was something that you said that you've always been interested in. So at this point, after being crowned, was there this link with going into the magical child and getting to know people, the right people coming forward at the time, and boom, you're on the path that you're,
I'm
that
on
you
the
are now?
path. It's about resonating with your teacher. You know, you always know wholeheartedly when you
When the
resonate
right
with
teacher.
your mentor, with your teacher. You know that that's that person for you. You could be mistaken, and you may, later on, move, aside, but you know that that person. So Lady Rhea has always been who she is, the most kindest, compassionate, loving human being I've ever met. And so I totally gravitated towards her, and we lost connection for a while. Life has that tendency to just, take you on its course, and then if it's meant to be, it'll bring you back. And so I was able to know that she was in Yonkers, and she had her shop, and I was able to connect with her, and that's how I started my whole journey through Welsh, the New York Gwynedd tradition, and also a Gardnerian New York Wicca. Because I was initiated by Lady Rhea and by, Sliwinski. I know his last name. Her husband at the time. And I was able to, she elevated me back in '95, and it was a magical journey. I was brought in knowing she knew that I was prepared, and she knew who I was, and that's one of the things that when you're that connection with your teacher and student and teacher, that is priceless.
Would you say that you still practice witchcraft and your lineage now today, as opposed to anything that you've gone through?
I practice Cabot. I practice today Cabot tradition. I practice Cabot tradition. Do I represent? Do I acknowledge and honor? Yes. Other, my past traditions, but mostly what and that's important to relay onto the audience, is that you can't mix, you can't be, there's some sort of, there is eclecticism, being eclectic, but you have to understand that each and every tradition has to be honored and has to be respected and performed solely on how it is. So if I'm going to honor, let's say, Gardnerian, I will honor it how it was, because I'm a traditionalist at heart. So you have to honor it as is. You can't be mixing, mixing it in and so forth. I think it loses its value. It loses certain respect towards that tradition. So today I primarily practice Cabot tradition. I am a reverend high priest. I represent the priesthood within Cabot tradition, and also her legacy, Laurie Cabot.
Okay. All right. So with all this rich, wonderful spiritual work that you do, how does this affect your profession? You as in the medical field.
Wow.
How does that play into everything? Because that I find fascinating.
As a frontliner, in today's world that we've experienced, it's been quite tough guarding yourself spiritually. It's been a challenge, I would say, to challenge, to uphold told the profession and its purpose, its mission of caregiving, of excellence in nursing, in surgery, which what I do primarily. I have 30 years of nursing and 23 years of surgical services. So I'm a surgical technologist as well as a first assist. So I am diverse in my own services when it comes to plastics and recon and otolaryngology. So I pretty much use my magic to guard myself, to neutralize, to provide quality service towards my patient. That's the primary mission of my profession today, and it always has been.
Right. And helps you to focus as well.
It helps me to focus, but I try to compartmentalize my profession from also my priesthood, because a lot of people within my profession, a lot of people wouldn't understand that. A lot of people wouldn't understand paganism, Wicca, nevertheless witchcraft. They wouldn't understand what, you know.
Yeah.
The other day I was working with my surgeon in his office, in surgery suite that he has in his office, and I was like, and he said, I saw you on Instagram with this robe and this and that. And I said, I told you I'm a priest, but he doesn't know what kind of priest. So he thinks, you know, I tell him universal spiritual. I tell him it's spiritual universal. I never tell him, you know, paganism or witchcraft.
You don't want to get into that.
It wouldn't register with him.
No, the average person doesn't understand that, and it would be way too much to try to explain that. So it would be
too much for him to even digest. So I would rather not, you know, hence why
you don't need to go there.
Alexander Cabot and Alexander de la Rue, which is my real name.
Okay.
And then publicly known as Alexander Cabot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alex. I'm finished my questions, but I know Jean-Jerome. I always hand it off to him because he's got 1,001 questions, and he's also the one who introduces some of our people who tune in. They have questions, so I'm going to hand it over to Jean-Jerome, and we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Bueno, primero, bienvenido, mi hermano. Muy interesante el recorrido espiritual que has tenido. It's very interesting, the spiritual trajectory you've had. I'm going to do this bilingual so that for those tuning in that they're primarily Spanish speakers, they can understand what's being said. A través de ese recorrido espiritual, haber pasado por palo, también la parte espiritual del catecismo, regla de ocha, y ahora en tu práctica como reverendo de Cabot, la tradición Cabot de Wicca. Una pregunta es, ¿cuál es el sistema que usted más utiliza para orientarse, para guiarse en el sentido de adivinación? So I'll ask the question, having passed through the various traditions we've outlined, Palo, Spiritismo, Regla de Ocha, and now, you know, Cabot, Wicca. The question is, what is the main tool or the main sort for guidance in terms of, you know, divination and so forth, that what is your personal go-to, or do you yourself do divination for anyone in terms of your tradition?
For divination, it's just individualistic. So I do una combinación. It's a combination of my roots, of me as an individual, and also what I've learned throughout. So I would primarily the basic is, you see, Laurie Cabot has a user-friendly technique, which is the crystal countdown meditation. That is wonderful for those that are learning how to go into alpha, how to learn. But when I was growing up, we didn't have anything like that. We automatically, they taught us, close your eyes, go into a remote viewing into the third eye, and right away I would see the light, I would see the pictures, and it was like a movie picture, what I mean, within my mind. And I would then know what was going on, and then I would relate, and it would be symbolic, and some sort of semantics and so forth. So that sort of divination is what I still practice today. I'm more in tune. I just went through a certain exercise of a month that I needed to do to straighten things out, to do some sort of house cleaning, which I did. And I was able to, now I feel sharp, like my spiritual senses are more quick. There's not that delay. There's not that obstruction anymore. I feel very alive, very in tune, like right away that I could put myself in a higher consciousness. And it's so beautiful that is able to be done with no obstruction. And that's work. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't come from a book. It doesn't, yes, learning, there's books out there that you could learn and absorb, but also things have become diluted. Things have been spread out. So if you're looking for the path, search for someone that resonates with you. Learn from them. Grow. See what else you could venture out into. It's not the only the end of, what I mean. Everything evolves. We all evolve, even after this life, if we evolve.
Absolutely.
Okay. And right now, like being in from New York and living in there, and having been through the different, what has been, this is something I wanted to ask later, Ria, but we had such a delightful conversation. We went to so many areas that we ran out of time. I got to ask you. So, and also because you're born in Cuba, so having the both sides, how have you found the relationship between these different traditions in terms of communities in New York? Have you seen there to be support and communication and like an outreach between, let's say, the Inquisi community or Palero community, with the Regla Ocha community, Santeria, with the Cabot and other Wicca or witchcraft communities? How has that, especially facing a common, and something which I like very much that you said earlier, because it's something which the ATR and even the Regla de Ocha and Ifa Afrodescendientes suffer from, which is pointing fingers, criticism, infighting, one-upmanship, disrespect, rather than coming together for humanity, coming together in terms of setting an example and working together to defend from, sometimes one of the biggest enemies we all have, which is ignorance. So how have you found that in terms of New York, growing up? A very interesting sort of experience there.
That's nice for you to say, and I would like to add to that also ignorance and ego. So unfortunately, ego plays a big part of it, because people fall into the trappings. This is a spiritual path. This is about emotions. This is about spirit. This is about our humanity, our love, for nature, for spirit, for ourselves, for our brothers, our sisters. Unfortunately, it has become commercialized, you know, of course, and now with the technology that we have today, everything's out in the open. And what was once mystery schools have become not so mystery anymore. So you have to understand that this is a calling. You know, I didn't choose this. This chose me. This is something that I am part of, and I need and you have to and you have to realize within yourself that the love within you resonates to others, and that's what's important. And communal energies. Okay, you could be solitary if you'd like. Okay, fine. That you'll be solitary. But that's stagnant. You want to grow. You want to evolve. You want to reach out for those communal energies. So you go further. You tap into other groups or become part of a coven or a congregation. Like, let's say, the temple of Laurie Cabot, of the Cabot Hermetic Temple, and that resonates with you. That's part of the steps that you take for spiritual evolution within this plane of existence as human beings. But and we need to. Don't worry about others.
Absolutely.
Yes, others will have their ego, they'll have their pretense, they'll have this, they'll have that. The fights, and then you eradicate, like Laurie Cabot says, put a white X over them, you neutralize it, and you move on. This is about your spiritual growth, and that's what's important. And whatever.
That's our dog.
Oh, excuse me.
I think we have a puppy. I think we have a puppy emergency there. El perro le pasó algo.
Oh, ¿qué le pasó al perro? Ay, pobrecito.
No sé.
Okay.
Pero empezó a aullar. Parece que algo lo asustó o algo. Pero no, lo que tú dices para la persona que habla español es muy importante, ¿me entiendes? Porque el ego interfiere mucho con el espíritu.
No, you have to separate the ego. El ego no es importante. El ego moderadamente, within moderation, you have to have some sort of
about that.
So your self-esteem, obviously. Yes, self-esteem and everything. But and a good balance of ego. But ego went to the point that harms others, then you're defeating its purpose. And you're calling yourself, on the spiritual path. Not necessarily so. So this is the true, ignorance. Yes, you learn. You're guided by those teachers. Like I said, we honor our elders. As we honor our elders, we honor ourselves, because from our elders we become teachers.
We become the elders. Absolutely.
Yes, we become the teachers, and we become our elders, and we need to bring that love and compassion. We don't have that. It's about
not the competition.
Do I necessarily want to be in the spotlight? No, I want to have a very, very peaceful life. I want to travel. I want to do this, but I work hard to provide what? To be a good role model. To give education.
Community. Absolutely.
To give community. To be a leader, a spiritual leader for those who are in need. This is why I do it. Do I do it for what? Notoriety? No, I'd rather be at peace. I work hard. I work with people every day in my life in surgery.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm writing a book. I'm doing this. I'm going to help. I'm educating others. I'm mentoring. I do it out of the kindness of my heart because it's a calling.
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Absolutely, ashe. Definitely.
And that's the true reason of it all. Otherwise, you know, I mean, I would be laid back. I would be traveling. I would be doing other stuff. But being a public figure within the craft and my priesthood is to provide that service for others. That's what's important.
That's right. Vianney, hello, Vianney. Vianney says, el ego es la enfermedad del espíritu. No nos permite conectarnos bien.
Exactamente.
The ego.
El ego es una enfermedad que por esto no puedes volver.
Yeah.
Eso, you know, that is, it's a sickness, and people fall. There was Forbes. I'll never forget Forbes, which is wisdom. He wrote it down one time. That is the trappings, that people fall into those trappings and don't know how to balance it. Everything in moderation.
Ashe. Ashe. En todo moderación. I don't want
everything in moderation. You know why? Because the universe is balance, and then we see,
it is.
And so divinity is balance.
We were just talking about
that within ourselves.
In Yoruba, when they say iwapele, many elders have talked about iwapele, good character. That it is good character that can basically determine the outcome of your destiny, and whether you can either have a good destiny or a bad destiny. Because you can have chosen a good destiny, but your character is out of balance. And iwapele is not so much good character, but balanced character, being in an equilibrium. Right, so that's why it's very, very important.
Universal law, universal force. The you know, it's that balance that we seek within ourselves for our lives. You know, we need the stability, we need health, we need love, we need prosperity. But we also then when you have those blessings, what do? You give unto others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Ken Allen says, I don't want to be an elder, but you know what? We don't have a choice. We have to pass these things to future generations so they won't be lost.
I'm proud. I have with one of my Cabot brothers, Jeff Cabot Sutton, I was able to do a beautiful ceremony in Salem, Massachusetts, as we were, it was called wizarding, where we became elders within the tradition of the Cabot tradition. And we had this ceremonial rite, initiatory rite, that it was wonderful, that I shared it with him. And they're Canadians. And so they're part of my family and my heart that I hold dear. And so that's something that I share with you guys.
Thank you.
It's spirituality is one own practice. So may it be Abrahamic, you know, ideology, it could be anything, paganism, it could be anything, but as long as you practice with heart, with love, that's what's important.
Absolutely. Jean-Jerome. Jean-Jerome.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask something else.
Okay.
the question.
Before my dog starts to howl again. Oh my goodness! I apologize for that.
Well, if he's
No,
howling,
I guess he
He saw-
resonated with
he-
what I was saying.
Absolutely.
or he
She
saw
thought she
something.
would chime in.
Or
Yes,
she
yes,
saw something.
yes. That was Zola, my Rottweiler. And
Yeah.
my
Oh,
Newfoundlander has
wow.
to come.
Wow.
And here's my new feet. Oh my goodness, he's in my face. Sorry, folks.
New moon
Okay,
in
okay.
Libra. Yes. Blessings unto you.
So
Okay.
let me ask you a question, Alejandro. Having again, I'm for the purpose of the audience and benefit of the audience, especially those that are in other traditions as well. Having gone through again Palo, having gone through again Regla de Ocha, and now being in the Cabot tradition. When it comes to, and you recited very well one of the apata keys of creation, of how the genesis of creation.
Yes.
And you mentioned references and respect for Oya, Oshun, and Yemoja in Regla Ocha and their equivalents in Palo. How did that, having seen that, having sort of grown up or had that trajectory and seen the orishas and the empungos and enkisis at work, how did you find the jump, or how would you not compare, because as you said, I don't want to mix to create a mix match question in the sense of mixing one tradition with the other, but how, from a worldview, from a spiritual worldview, how did you reconcile the spiritual worldview as, let's say, not just recited by Orisha or Nkisi, but also lived in terms of the systems of divination, the mediumship, the divination through Dilogun, Edi Dilogun, through Ifa, and through other methods? How do you reconcile the spiritual forces in Cabot? In other words, how do they work? Although you keep them separate, how do you find that those forces interplay with each other, or do?
No, they're more ancestral. So how I compartmentalize, that's how you're trying to ask me this question.
Yes.
How I compartmentalize the forces and energies of the tradition itself. It's very easy. To me, it's ancestral. So when I am going through Cabot, how I went on to the Cabot tradition was because being already a high priest within the Gardnerian New York Wicca, and also Welsh in New York City, and having my Book of Shadows and having all that, I was lacking something, that I needed to do, like a pilgrimage. So I went on to Salem, Massachusetts. And when I went on to Salem, Massachusetts, what a better person than Laurie Cabot for the Celtic mythology. So I was able to honor my Celtic heritage. I know I have that Celtic heritage because my mother is very, Gallega. And so I knew that I had that Celtic energy that needed to be revered and honored. So I wanted to do that with the Cabot tradition, and also my sentiments and love for Laurie Cabot, for her accomplishments within the craft, being such a recognized figure within modern day witchcraft. So I wanted to also be part of that, and I was able to, and that's how I ventured into. So I compartmentalize what is through ancestry, through what is the Cabot tradition, and then the ATRs. So I know, and to me it's easy. It's one thing or the other. So
Right.
it's from Keridwin, or I would go into Oya, or I would go into Rhiannon, or or Oshun, or Mama Santeya. And so I know the differences. I know it's history, it's folklore, it's magic. I feel it. I resonate with it. It bathes me.
You would feel it, definitely.
Yes,
It's something that
it's in my heart. It's in my heart.
absolutely
It's in my
you tune
soul.
in.
When I know about its the differences. So when I like today, when I spoke about the ATRs, I spoke its language and I sang certain prayers.
It resonated within you.
It's part of me because it's part of my upbringing, and it's authentic. That authenticity shines through me, as well as when
Absolutely.
I practice, let's say, Gardnerian, it would be Gardnerian.
Absolutely.
Cabot. So that's something that I compartmentalize and that I know how to do. It's easy. For me, it is.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe for
Not
others
everybody
it's
is
not.
able to do that. No, exactly.
Maybe
And
for
that's
others it's
something.
not, but for me it is easy, and because I guess I'm a Virgo, and Virgos are very, very, methodical. So so I know how to do that. So ancestrally, that is the answer. It's I tap into the ancestors, and I tap into that energy, that folklore, that wisdom.
It's the only way to do that.
And in speaking about the ancestors, I mean, we the motto of our show, as you know, is life is the journey our ancestors began. And you made a distinction, which I was very happy for you to make early on in the show when Teresa was asking you the question. And many of our guests have a common view and a clarity of difference between when we use the term ancestor. There are, yes, blood ancestors, but there's other types of ancestral spiritual guides that do not are quite often have nothing to do with your blood lineage, but represent, especially in el espiritismo cartesiano, tu guía espiritual.
Yeah.
And in terms of this, I ask this may be a bit of a personal question, so it's up. I leave it to your discretion to answer or not to answer, depends on your comfort level. In terms of your own guía espiritual, in terms of your own journey, in terms of your own ancestral spiritual, or as the Yoruba say, your oba ego, el espíritu que te corona, el espíritu que te guía. What from your communication, from your basically communion with that spirit, which of the traditions is the one that more resonates with that spirit? And how did the knowledge or the awareness of that ancestral spiritual guide or guía espiritual help you or guide you through these different traditions to where you are today?
Okay. There is within the pantheon, let's say, let's talk la boda espiritual. Within the pantheon, spiritual pantheon, you have certain spiritual guides, okay, and then you have one particular spirit which is it's very enlightened. It is very elevated. There are different dimensions, okay. Whoever read, the Hermetic philosophy knows about different dimensions, and so there is this particular spirit is so elevated, but yet it is one of the most purest spirits, forces, entities, that is your guardian angel. What we call guardian angel, but it's a protector, a guardian. And so then you have spirit guides on a more closer dimension. It's like a parallel dimension, and that spirit, those spirits are there with you. And then then goes on and on and on and on until it reaches a very enlightened entity, which would be your guardian angel.
Absolutely.
That spirit I have seen. That spirit has, oh wow, has touched me, has shown itself, and as a little boy, and I would say that it is a beautiful imagery. To this day, I have in my mind, impregnated in my mind, and forever.
Absolutely.
And to the day I die, I will see that spirit. I guess that spirit will be with me, will guide me. And so it is something that is just beyond words, I have to say. So that is...
We are definitely familiar with that, as Jean-Jerome is always referring to as our main guide, our Joto. This is what I work with as well, and my own court of spirits as well. And so I know exactly what you talk about, Alexander, totally. Coming forward, making himself known in so many ways and very mystical ways. Sometimes it's quite stunning. It really is.
Oh, it's something breathtaking.
Yeah,
it's totally breathtaking.
It's so powerful. They take you to a place,
in this spirit,
they actually create.
This spirit has shown itself mentally and also physically, has visualized itself within my mind, and also physically has presented itself onto me. And so that's something that I'll always remember and always love.
I know exactly. Thank you for sharing. I know exactly what you speak of. Totally. It's an experience I've gone through myself, and it's sort of a shamanic initiatory experience that I went through.
Correct.
So I definitely can relate to that for sure.
Correct.
Jean-Jerome, is there anyone else that has any questions?
I sent out I think everybody's very immersed in the conversation because we have several people watching right now, but they're either shy. I sent out a statement saying, "Please feel free to ask your questions. Don't be shy," but nobody's posed any questions just yet. So I have one more question. I noticed in you a very strong influence, espiritualmente mucha influencia de lo masón. Lo que más te influencia a ti es espíritu que eran masón. How have you found that in your practice of a Gardnerian and in the Cabot tradition, and having family who were Freemasons? How have you found a lot of evidence of elements or aspects of practice or ritual that may come or have an origin in Freemasonry?
Actually, Gardner, who started the whole Wicca, the movement of Wicca, modern day, witchcraft. He took a lot of influences from Rosicrucians, Freemasons. He tied them all in. So he says, he claims that he was initiated through the New Forest and through a coven, and he developed which is the British traditional witchcraft today. But a lot of it are family traditions that, like Teresa and I always said, that oral traditions that were passed down through Welsh, Scottish,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the English as well. I would say that today we have the modern day witchcraft because of Gerald Gardner, you know, and I don't think that he ever intended it to be called Wicca. I don't think that it just grew to become what it is today. Wicca, as you know, is an Anglo-Saxon word that is the male practitioner, the witcher, and so he never. I don't think that, especially when we were revering female divinity, that he would be using the male term to be titled as the modern day witchcraft. I don't think that he intended that to become, but it became. And that's what we have to today, even though we might, you know, no way. But we have to embrace it. It is federally recognized since 1986 that you know, witchcraft is Wicca is known as a federally recognized religion.
Absolutely. It's part of our heritage now, you know, and moving forward.
Well, here in America, you know, I don't know about Canada. I don't know
it
about...
It's recognized.
It is. It definitely is. We have our British traditional. I've been initiated into a British traditional, which Lady Rhea and I discussed and said, we're actually cousins because of the same witches in our lineage. So I guess that means
we're cousins too.
Exactly. No, very, very fascinating. So I don't know about you, Jean-Jerome, but I think this has turned out to be more English than it has Spanish.
Yeah, we're having people asking. I have to switch it up to Spanish here because Sonia López dice si podemos si se puede hablar en español y Aburu Boye, lástima que no se puede hablar, que no puede hablar inglés.
Wow. No, podemos hablar un poquito en español. Para eso que quieren saber, estamos hablando sobre las diferencias de tradiciones en lo que es la brujería británica, lo que ahora en Estados Unidos, en Canadá se practica, que son tradiciones que vienen de Inglaterra, la gardineriana, la alexandrina, y bueno, eso es todo. Y ahora tenemos la americana, que es Cabot Tradition, Correllian. Hay varias tradiciones, lo que es la brujería, basada en británica. Y eso es lo que estamos hablando también. Estamos hablando lo que es Palomonte.
Regla de ochas, habló un poco.
Regla de ochas, sí, Yoruba.
En Nueva York. En Nueva York. En Nueva York, como se manifestó la religión en Nueva York. Siguiendo en español, ¿qué consejo, Alejandro, qué consejo tú le darías a personas jóvenes que están buscando su espiritualidad, que están buscando su dirección espiritual, especialmente no solamente en Nueva York, sino en un mundo donde se ve tantas tradiciones diferentes, tantas ramas diferentes? ¿Qué tú aconsejarías a esa juventud?
El consejo que le puedo dar yo es de buscar, de saber adentro de ello qué es lo que pueden tener qué campo espiritual quieren tener. Buscar ese maestro, buscar ciertos libros, leer sobre ese tema, explorar un maestro que le puede guiar, que le puede ayudar a orientarlo en ese campo espiritual. Eso, así es como yo comencé. Yo comencé en la búsqueda de una comunidad y después de un maestro, una maestra que podía orientarme en el campo espiritual. Y así fue la orientación mía y pude desarrollarme mediunímicamente y también en lo que era Palo Monte y después Ocha.
Muy bien. So, Teresa, just for the English speaker, again, I asked what advice you could give a young person who is looking, first looking at, finding their spiritual path or journey, and what advice he would give, especially with so many different traditions being discussed and represented. So Alexander gave a very good, sort of breakdown in terms of looking for community, looking for elders, and they can teach them. They have the respect, and they can to choose which energy or which path, spiritual path, resonates with the individual.
That's important. For one own that you have to choose. You have to know and resonate with that tradition. It could be Alexandrian, it could be Gardnerian, it could be Cabot, it could be anything else.
Lee Cabot Dagas says, great episode tonight, spreading the knowledge and wisdom from such a respectful elder, dear friend and brother of the Cabot tradition, Alexander Cabot, blessed be.
I love him very much. Lee Cabot Dagas, yes.
Thank you for that. No.
Dice, bueno, muchas gracias desde Argentina.
Querida Argentina. Estaba oyendo yo Julia Senko, una cantante argentina hoy en día.
Muy bien, muy bien. Y I can say this in Spanish and English. Alexander, you mentioned you had recently, I believe, had some cultural and spiritual exchanges with Brazil, and how? I don't know if you're at liberty to discuss it, but was it with the British traditional witchcraft in Brazil, or was it with other traditions like candomblé, umbanda, quimba, or anything?
Candomblé. No, it was how I got to go to Brazil was that my boss at the time, I was invited to do a surgical symposium in Brazil. This was 2003, and we were doing a surgical symposium where we were operating in one town off of Sao Paulo, and it was being filmed in Sao Paulo at this hotel at this symposium. And so that was my first experience in going to Brazil. And right away, because being Cuban and Brazilians are very, very similar. The magical energy is like magnet. It's magnetized quickly. And so right away with the Brazilians, I was able to feel that hospitality, that family, that magic with them that was so endearing and captivating. And I made friends right away. And so there was this Spaniard, a Castilian family, that their son and daughters, they spoke Spanish as well, but they were born in Brazil, but their parents are from Castile. And so I fell in love with them, and we became instant friends and so close. And from then on, I started going more and more to Brazil. And when I became a Cabot high priest, I was asked by Laurie to represent the tradition in Brazil. And that was my first venture within the ministry of the Cabot tradition as a reverend high priest. and an ambassador to represent the tradition in Brazil. And it was an amazing journey where I did in Sao Paulo, and then I did a whole lecture in the University of Rio de Janeiro in an auditorium with 300 folks, and that was overwhelming for me. For the first time, I was like, okay, good thing I have a PowerPoint presentation. So this is something that was my first exposure onto the spotlight or the public eye as a pagan representative or role model. So this is definitely was my first exposure, and so Brazil was that platform. And then I came back to the States, and then it started rolling from there.
Okay.
Right,
so I guess.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I got the impression that when you went to Brazil, as you said, you were there to present yourself as a high priest of the Cabot tradition. Was there a community? Obviously, you said there were 300 people who came to see you. So obviously there was an interest in something other than what was local to Brazil at the time. Candomblé,
there was different
they were more open to that.
Yeah,
right?
there's different traditions within. This was in Rio de Janeiro, so there was different traditions within Brazil, and they were pagans, they were Wiccans, they were solitaries, they were candomblé, they were babalaos, that they were different. They were because I did a pilgrimage. It was a march through the streets of Copacabana. It was a parade of tolerancia religiosa. So it was a religious tolerance movement or march that is done every September in Rio de Janeiro, in Copacabana. And so I was invited not only to talk, but also to participate and carry the Cabot banner within that march. And they were it was ecumenical. There were all types of churches, religious, Christians, Christianity, Catholics, Protestants, of all types of denominations walking within that march. And then the pagans as well. There were Hindus, there were Buddhists, there were Allan Kardec's, even Masons. They're not religious in a religious order, but they're a congregation, so they were marching as well.
Very
awesome.
Good. Nestor says, para mí la mejor cultura de oricha umbandista de la Quimbanda se encuentra en Bahía, la vieja, en lo más antiguo.
La Bahía. El mejor carnaval que uno puede tener. Río de Janeiro, sí, el carnaval es comercial y todo, pero lo que es Bahía, el carnaval de Bahía es lo mejor. Eso es folclórico, eso es genuino. Para mí eso es lo más espectacular que yo pude tener.
And just before I read Jay Sword's question in English, what Alexander has pointed out, that march is very important because in Brazil there has been in the last several years a lot of incidents of abuse, of discrimination, of violence against practitioners of Afro-descendant religions and belief systems. So for the Cabot tradition to have had a representative as eloquent as Reverend Alexander to show that moral support and show that unity
Awesome.
with all these other traditions is something worthy of note, to the point that the situation in Brazil was so grievous in terms of the abuse and the deaths and the destruction of property
Yes.
and altars and temples and shrines, that there was an appeal by the Mai Pai Santo all the way to the United Nations.
Yes. Yes. Awesome.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
No, and that's important to note. Absolutely.
So J Sword says, "Hi, it's J Sword. I have two questions. If you are allowed to talk about it, what are some of your daily spiritual practices, number one? And number two is, what advice would you give to people to help them get through the difficult time of the pandemic?"
I would say meditation. That has helped me throughout this time to have some reflection, quiet reflection within myself. As a frontliner, it's been very hard, and we are now in the aftermath of this pandemic, but we're still riding it. I think that by December the vaccine will be out. Don't be scared of it. It's going to be in 2 increments given this vaccine. I believe that this, don't think about all this theories, conspiracy theories, and so forth. This is true, that we are now here in New York. Our numbers are rising, but the death toll is still contained. It's not as severe as it was. So we're doing, I think that yes, we could have a second wave, or maybe we're entering a second wave, but I think that we have a better control on it, than what we did in the beginning.
No, that's
good to know. As a frontliner, I would say that I don't want to go through what I went through. I surely don't want to do that. I want to have the serenity and the routine that I always had. But we need to focus on ourselves, to heal ourselves, heal our families, our loved ones.
Absolutely.
We need to meditate. We need to focus on the good of humanity, the good of all, because and project onto the universe. And hopefully, if you in unity there is strength, and if we do that, we will be better off.
Absolutely, you hit the nail right on the head there, Alexander, with regard to really projecting that positivity, that support of one another, because that's the only way we're actually going to get through this, And on an individual basis, I totally agree with you. Meditation, reflection on oneself. I mean, this is really what this pandemic has done for a lot of us, right? So,
we say in Spanish, no hay mal que por bien no venga. There's no bad that from good comes out from.
Absolutely.
So this is a time of self-reflection, of healing oneself, of asking for the better good, for the higher good of oneself, for humanity itself and the world.
Absolutely. Sorry about that, but my dog is just right in my face, aren't you, Stashu? Yes, my big noof, right in my face.
So, Alexander, a quote as we reach the end of the second hour. A quote that basically summarizes your philosophy of life and practice, and that really best exemplifies yourself.
This is a very from my heart, and it's a quote that is has been copyrighted, and you know it's my own. But be a light unto darkness, so you may be the black balance of the universe. Blessings.
Ashe,
Unto
ashe.
all.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Very good.
That's wonderful. Thank you
Ashe,
so much,
ashe.
Alexander.
You're
And
very
That's
welcome.
kudos
wonderful.
to you being a frontliner for this pandemic and
Especially in
being
New
a
York.
leader
And in New York, because New
spiritually,
York,
like
New York
honest to God.
Yes,
You know,
it's
blessings to you,
heartbreaking.
for
It's
sure.
heartbreaking. My own city here, it's boarded up. We have homeless. It's not the same. New York is not the same like it used to be, but it is home,
No.
and I work very hard to provide, you know, the services that I do, and that creates my own livelihood, and that's what's important. So, and I'm looking for better times, better days up ahead.
ashe, ashe. So, Teresa, do you have any final question or anything else you'd like to ask?
No, other than I was tickled pink that you came onto our show. Awesome. I really, really enjoyed this, Alexander. It's been a real pleasure. It
You're
really has.
very
And I'm sure
welcome.
everyone
Thank you.
who's tuned
I
in
enjoyed
Canada
it too. I
are
enjoyed
probably
meeting you
tickled
guys.
pink.
You guys are wonderful. I hope to see you soon.
Ashe.
This is
I hope
wonderful.
I hope the
Yeah.
once the pandemic subsides, the border reopens, we'd love to have you up here in Canada. I'm sure all your Cabot family as well would die for you to come up, and maybe we
Absolutely.
take a visit down to New York
Definitely.
and break bread together and share some more stories and
Absolutely.
wisdom. So thank you
Yes.
very much.
Absolutely.
Muchísimas gracias. Muchas
De
bendiciones.
nada. Con cariño.
Mucha bendición para su familia, para
Igualmente.
toda la familia de Nueva York. Mucha
Gracias.
evolución
Igualmente a todos.
y salud, que lo haga lo más así
Salud
importante.
sobre todo.
Salud
Pero
sobre
mucho,
todo,
mucho, mucho
amor.
amor.
Luis progreso para su espíritu. Luis progreso para ese espíritu. Fuerte mercado.
There goes my cuckoo clock.
Muchas bendiciones. Muchísimas gracias por estar en el
Igualmente.
programa. Y I would be remiss if I didn't, of course, acknowledge one of our most loyal
yes.
and furry of audience, Mojo, which has been
Oh.
tuning in week after week, watching the show religiously, always watches our
Since
guests.
he was a baby kitten.
This is a baby. So I have to say, Beth's cat. So thank you. Thank you for sharing always that picture. It's always, I know, it warms everybody's heart.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
So I want to say thank you once again, Alexander, for coming on our show. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in and are watching our show and following us here in Canada. As you know, we have audience that is worldwide, everywhere from Canada to Europe, to Great Britain, to all the way to Tuva in Siberia even, and to South America. So we have a wide audience, and I know everybody who's tuned in is just, well, we're all tickled pink, and we are pleased that you came on board for sure. And I'm sure everyone's enjoying this too. And all these people, now everybody starts talking. Now you guys are
Now
all on
everybody's
board.
talking. And I don't have my glasses, so I can't read
Yo
anything.
te lo voy a leer. Néstor Cadelo de Argentina, from Argentina, says, hoy hablamos mucho de la cultura religiosa, tanto yoruba, cubana, santería, el vudú, etcétera, que comienza mucho con Egipto, India y Arabia. ¿Qué dirían ustedes? Si puede ser en español, gracias.
Bueno, o sea, las raíces son naturalmente de esas tradiciones. Dicen que nosotros venimos de África. Nuestras raíces son de África. Entonces, y los egipcios dieron mucho de nuestra cultura, Babylonians as well. So I'm talking about the roots of civilization, of humanity itself, our magical practice. Where did they come from? Of course, the Kemetics, the Babylonians. So the Sumerians, you have a lot of those, we take from those traits. The Greeks, the Romans, obviously. So it's always been a chain. The Judaica. So it's always been a chain reaction. So it's been a chain reaction throughout life. And what's it all called? Humanity. It's all part of humanity. It's all part of our species and our civilizations throughout.
Yeah. No, I mean, muchas de las investigaciones que hemos hecho hace 10 años que estamos haciendo investigaciones, tanto con Boconoda, Fuji, el IFA World Conference, Babanels y otros grupos, buscando las raíces culturales y religiosas de las tradiciones que se practican en Oricha, regla de Ocha, Oricha y Fa
Yoruba,
en
de Nigeria.
También el Vodun Fa en Benin, el Vodun Fa de los Fombe, y tanto también de investigaciones que también hace otras personas como Owen Ballard sobre la raíces de Inkisi, o sea, también los orígenes de Inkisi viniendo de otras regiones y la influencia de esa zona de Egipto, Babilonia, Sumeria, todo lo que es Mesopotamia, toda la parte esa también de los fenicios y otras culturas de India, también de Oriente.
And even India, which is one very bien antiguo. Y las escrituras, Sanskrit, que son las más viejas, todo eso es parte de nuestros ancestros, y eso es lo que es importante. Esa es la magia que nosotros hoy tenemos en nuestra vida, en esta generación.
Y el reverendo Alexander dijo algo al principio muy interesante. Él describió que la religión, siendo un resultado de la cultura y de la forma de la persona de ver lo espiritual. Pero lo que tenemos que darnos cuenta es que cada cultura se basa en años, milenios de emigración, de intercambio, y ahora en este mundo globalizado hay mucha información que circula y muchas tradiciones a través del comercio que se ve muy evidente. Por ejemplo, en Benín se ve en Togo, se ve dioses hindú, vodú, me dicen vodú, pero son dioses hindú por el intercambio comercial de telas y otros productos como el aceite de palm, etcétera. Entonces, que los orígenes, que ha habido mucho intercambio religioso y espiritual, absolutamente, y que mucho de ese conocimiento proviene de esa parte de África del Este, de Mesopotamia, de Egipto, etcétera, es muy correcto en muchas formas, y de otras partes también, hasta las montañas rurales y la parte eslávica también, the Slavics as well. There's a lot of
Teresa understands everything that we said.
Teresa's sure. Right on that. Teresa's right on that, right, Teresa?
Absolutely.
So no, I was just saying a lot of these traditions, as Reverend Alexander said earlier on, that the religion is really an expression, a cultural expression of how people see the divine, right? And that but fundamentally these are universal truths, and that with over the century, with migrations of populations and commerce over other things not so pleasant, like the Atlantic slave trades, other forms of slave trades from one area of the world to the other, these religions and belief systems spread, and you can see the influence.
And they merged.
Exactly. So
absolutely.
That's why we had the library Alexandria. You know what I mean? And we had a lot of that diversity in Alexandria. You know, so that's one of the
Egypt,
beauties,
yes.
the beauties of humanity coming together. But like I always say, and I'm going to say this in Spanish, la religión es hecha por el hombre.
Ache.
La religión, eso es solamente nuestra interpretación de lo que es nuestra espiritualidad. Entonces nosotros buscamos lo que es divinidad, lo que es el Dios o la diosa. En nosotros lo buscamos sobre la religión. Y eso es lo que tenemos hoy. Cristianismo, budismo, lo que sea. Eso es lo importante que uno tiene que definir en lo que en lo que uno cree y tiene fe. Eso es lo que es la pasión que uno nos da.
And I have one question. Actually, just when you said that, I got to ask this in Spanish. We just don't want to let you go, my brother. In the name of your temple, the Cabot Temple, you use the word hermetic, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question: the source or the origin of the word hermetic within the use in your temple's name. Does it have anything to do with the concept of Hermes Trismegistus?
Hermes Trismegistus, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Hermes Trismegistus, yes.
Yes.
Three trice.
Thrice Hermes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The three trice. Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a full word.
That's a full word.
Mouth
Easy
word.
for us to say, right?
Yeah. Trismegistus, yes. Hermes being a sentient being, a god itself, and he was father of astrology, of arithmetic, of so many. So he gave way to what is the knowledge of the Hermetic laws. So there was these three initiates that today we know that one of them is not so anonymous anymore, which is Paul Foster Case. Is one of the three initiates of the book written today as the Kybalion, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. The Kybalion is a fantastic little book that a lot of occultists refer to, and this is the book that gives way to the seven principles of the Hermetic laws. The first one being obviously mentalism. So we are within the mind of the all. So this is our reflection of the universe. So we connect. This is the source of it all. They used to, in our ancestors would say that a heart would be within our spirit. It is not so. The heart is a life source as well. It's a muscle, but it is the mind that encases our soul. So the mind is that's why we tap into our remote viewing, our higher consciousness through our mind. This is part of our soul. This is part within within this plane of existence. That's how we tap into other dimensions, the parallel universes, quote unquote. Let's say.
Absolutely.
Okay. Very, very good. Well, we could go on.
So, I know.
I want to be respectful for your time, and we appreciate you. Many blessings. Ire bobo oboato, long life, and may you be able to continue your path in peace.
Thank you.
In prosperity, in blessings, and for you and your community. And we're honored to have had you on the show. And I shout out to all your community again. Many blessings to you all and our respect.
Mhm.
And this
I
is the
enjoyed it. I
And blessed
enjoyed
be.
meeting you guys. You guys are
And
wonderful.
blessed be to all.
blessed be.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Blessed. Yes.
And I think we're going to say goodnight. So
Yes.
thank you
Buenas
for
noches.
everyone tuning in. Buenas noches. Blessed be.
Un placer.
And
Mi amor a todos.
farewell. Farewell. And thank you to all. All right. And to all the ancestors who tuned in as well.
Ashe,
So
ashe. Many blessings.
absolutely.
Good night, everybody.
Ciao.